Okay, day 160. This is part 3. In Indiana again, heading toward Detroit, about 240 miles away. Just finished a quick stop in Chicago. I think all roads in this story are leading to Detroit, and I'll tell you why. There's the Awan story is going to Detroit. There's several Gulen doctors that are going to Detroit, and Javid, Riceland Hospital, Javid is crossing in Detroit. So we've got 3 intersecting lines here, and so that's why I believe, plus we have several other news events. So let me go through them quickly. The Awan brothers, I believe their father is Pir Muhammad Shah. I may be wrong. It's hard to tell but from his website, from his Facebook, Imran had Pir Muhammad Shah on his Facebook. Now, maybe that was his military trainer, his intelligence trainer, who knows? But I'm running that lead down. What happened was he came here on a tourist visa. I believe he stayed on a medical visa. I believe he brought his family over. His 21-year-old daughter named Tariq, T-A-R-I-Q, I believe. The son, I don't remember the name. He was 15. Anyway, they asked for asylum. They asked for refugee status, and I believe they became Canadian citizens in 2011. Tariq, I believe, now lives in Detroit, and I believe she's a doctor. D.O., I don't know if that's doctor of ophthalmology or something else, but I believe she lives there. Now, the reason why that's important is if they held her stepmother, Imran held their stepmother against her will in the Springvale house, and made them change the inheritance, then Tariq might have been cut out of the allowance or the inheritance by the Awan brothers. Remember, the Awan brothers, especially Imran, threatened the relatives, threatened to kidnap the relatives of the stepmother, Galani, in Springville, Virginia. So that's one person I'm trying to see. The other person, of course, is Javid. Javid, Mr. Rice, Mr. Riceland Hospital. I believe he's also now involved in telemedicine, in telehealth, to do, believe it or not, video assist transplant. In addition to that, he's got imaging companies, and he's got these convenience stores that seem to do a great trade in welfare cards and also drug cards, food cards, EBT cards, trade those for drugs. There's a big scandal that he has in Alabama. Now, this is not anti-Muslim whatsoever. This is not even anti-Pakistani. This is anti-Pakistani intelligence in the United States, potentially affecting revenge on U.S. veterans' families. That's what this is. Remember, the mother and her relative just talked to the Daily Caller in Virginia, Luke Rosiak, and said that she is Pakistani. She said that Imran threatened to kidnap her relatives. The other woman that's with her is also Pakistani. She also says Imran threatened to kidnap their relatives. All the boys did, actually. So that's what I'm going on. So I would love to talk to Tariq if she's here, if she is a doctor here in Detroit, or where I'm going. I'm just entering Michigan now, at the Michigan-Indiana border on the tollway. The second piece of this with Javid is the famous Javid, the largest Medicare fraud case ever in the history of the United States. Maybe Medicaid now that I'm thinking about it. Well, Medicare, because I think all the victims were older. Anyway, that case starts with opioid deaths. That case starts with a Syrian doctor having 3 patients in the space of 7 months die from opioid poisoning, all in their 40s, except one guy was 51. Then a woman, 32, almost dies in that same period of time. And then 2 more women die. This is 2012 time frame. That doctor goes on to open a clinic near Detroit And he is the key guy working with the two Javed brothers in this bilking scheme where they're giving people drugs they don't need and also billing for services that are not provided, or watered down drugs that could be provided through the Javed connection in Texas, in Beaumont, Texas. So that guy down there, Tahir Javed in Beaumont, Texas, Hillary's largest contributor of 2016, also just happens to have 159 companies. So he's got the telemedicine for the transplants, telehealth. He's got the imaging company. I can't remember the name of it. But he's also owns hospice care. So he owns all these chain of hospice hospitals in addition to the Riceland Hospital doing transplants. So again, when I see linkages to the Javed name, two of the Javed brothers running this scam in a hospice type scenario, in a palliative care scenario, in an old age home, a rest home, nursing home environment, it sends off the alarm bells in my mind. The other, and interestingly enough, for some reason, the FBI and the Department of Justice decide to shard the Javed brothers in Detroit. They decided to give them different names, and they split the names. They call one brother, his last name is Tahir, and the other brother, Javed. And that's the name of the person who has the rice company in Beaumont, Texas. His name is Tahir Javed. So that's a little bit odd. That's a little strange, another coincidence. So I'm running that line down, and that's a direct connect to Javed. The other case that came up was this Dr. Death. This is the most deadly Dr. Death case. There's been deadly angels or angels of death cases where orderlies and nurses kill, 5 or 6 people. But if you hadn't heard of the Farid Farah, F-A-R-A case, hundreds of people were killed by this doctor. And now I don't know where Farid Farah is from, but there was hundreds of people killed again in Detroit. Hundreds almost killed. Now these people were given carcinogens. These people had induced cancer. He was given 45 years in prison, so I'm not making this up. You can look it up. Farid Farah, F-A-R-A, also in Detroit. So again, I have to look at this and say, what kind of person would do this? The only thing I can think of is if the Awans had given intelligence from missions that we ran in Afghanistan, and they had actual write-ups of the missions, and they know which soldiers killed who, they would know which American military personnel had potentially taken part in atrocities from those reports. And again, Imran Awan worked for Andre Carson, who sits on the Emerging Threats Committee, who would be sitting there getting those reports, those findings, and approving those as they come through. Now, a lot of things have happened since Trump's taken office that lead me to believe that there's leaks and people are using surveillance to sabotage these missions, especially the one where the Navy SEAL's wife was killed and the plane was shot down. And everyone on the SEAL team, if you look at the report, says they were expecting us. So that leak had to come from somewhere. And again, if you start looking for leaks, look for the people who have top secret access. Look for the people who are foreign nationals. Look for the people who have ISI paraphernalia and regalia all over their websites. Look for the people who have a background with their parents being in the ISI, in the police services in Punjab. It is the center for processing 90% of the world's opium. So again, I look to Tahir Javed as well, because he is also accused of murdering someone in Pakistan. A suit was brought against him in Texas for murdering someone in Pakistan. There also is with the Awans, with the car dealers, all the car dealerships that they ran, they also have a Pakistani who's the registered agent for one of their companies, Awan Brothers Inc., that had a murder of a car dealer in the network, which is one of their money laundering pass-throughs in the Virginia area, in the Manassas area, the Manassas murder. So again, that's another reason why the Javid line points directly to Detroit, the Awan line points directly to Detroit, and now I also have the Gulan line points directly to Detroit. Gulan, like I've always said, he does infiltrations. He's done infiltrations for the CIA for about 35 years. He was brought here in 1999 to run the infiltration of the United States. So was Javid. Javid shows up in the United States in 1999. Bill and Hillary Clinton are leaving the White House in 1999. So they're planning for an intelligence service to be operative while they're doing fundraising and out of power, and while Hillary is a senator. So a lot of things line up with Gulan being here. The number one supporter of Gulan, as everyone knows, is Muzaffar Awan. He is also in Detroit. So a lot of roads point toward Detroit. I'm sorry this is so long, but I want to explain why I'm going to Detroit. One of the key people I want to meet with is also, I mentioned her before, Pfeiffer, Cindy Pfeiffer. Cindy Pfeiffer's son was killed, had an overdose of opioid. We don't know if it's deliberate or not, but in a very small town of Lapeer, Lapeer, 8,000 people in this little town. They started the chapter in Lapeer of families against narcotics. And if we don't stop this, if this is a revenge network and people are saying, okay, it's okay to go after the kids with opioids, and it's okay to go after the parents with carcinogens, and it's okay to put all kinds of surveillance on the families, do life disruption, and those types of things, then we have to uncover it. We can't just let it go. So I would like to meet with her to find out more about those families, and I would like this to get more attention so that we can get the attention of the folks in the Department of Defense, with Tillerson and the Secretary of State, with General Mattis, and so forth. Again, this is not an anti-Muslim thing in any way, shape, or form. I defended a Muslim against McCabe in the Portland Christmas tree bomber entrapment. I am living the life I am because I did that. I rained on his parade. I called his baby ugly. So this is in no way an anti-Muslim thing. This isn't even an anti-Pakistani thing. This is an anti-Pakistani intelligence thing. Thank you very much.